Welcome to the Medium in the Middle podcast. I'm your host, Stephanie, the medium in the middle. This podcast is going to walk you through my journey into mediumship and how I came to realize that I could communicate with souls that have passed over. My adventure started just over a year ago when unusual situations started happening to me. It wasn't until I really started to pay attention to them that it all started to come together. I wrote down everything that I was experiencing this past year in a little black book, and this podcast is going to be a recap of all of those memories leading up to where I am today in my mediumship journey. I will be releasing new episodes every Tuesday, and I recommend listening to the podcast in order, starting with episode 1, as my story will unfold more week by week. If you would like to stay connected with me, follow me on Instagram at Medium in the Middle. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 26. In today's episode, I'm going to be sharing another story that happened during my visit to Ontario in October 2019. But before I jump right into that story, I would like to pull a card. So I've started to pull cards at the beginning of my episodes sometimes, and I always like to ask the deck what I need to know. So it's kind of like asking the universe what I need to know, what I need to pay attention to, and if they have anything for me. Last week, I actually taught my first restorative yoga class, my first ever yoga class. I've been certified to teach yoga for a few years now, but I haven't actually taught a class until last week. And I brought my oracle cards for the class, and at the end, when everyone was laying in Shavasana, I pulled a card for each person and placed it on their mat. And one girl came up to me after class and she had tears in her eyes, and she said that card was exactly what I needed to hear. So sometimes you just need to hear what you need to hear. And that's why I like using oracle cards. Okay, so the card that I got today is card number 18, Magic Stream. And it says, everything is connected through the universal flow of consciousness. The card meaning, every experience you have seems to have its own life story, with a beginning, a middle, and eventually an end. However, there is danger in seeing events as separate from one another, since in fact they are all part of a continuity and a greater evolution. Like an ever-flowing magic stream, your experiences filter through the whole world, one leading into another, informing and influencing still more. Inspiration, invention, and revelations rarely come to just one person. The collective awareness is a shared storehouse of potential. When you remember you're part of the fluid continuity of life, you become a channel for great inspiration. Allow the magic to flow through you and carry your dreams into reality. Your success will benefit many. It's really interesting to me that I got this card today as I was thinking, what is my next step for the podcast? Where am I taking this? What am I doing next? What do I do when my stories are all told and I'm caught up to present moment? So it's interesting that I get this card today when that's been on my mind. So thank you, universe, for the reminder that everything is connected and everything will flow just how it's meant to flow and be how it's meant to be. Okay, before I jump into this story, if you haven't already left a rating and a review on iTunes, I would really appreciate it. It only takes a few moments of your time, and it really helps me in the podcast world for new listeners to find the podcast. So thank you in advance. I love reading your reviews, and I appreciate every rating. So in last week's episode, I talked about how I was home in Ontario, visiting friends and family, as well as doing my Reiki Master's course. So in last week's episode, episode 25, I talked about being at Tara's cottage and what happened with channeling her grandfather at the dinner table. If you missed that episode, go back and listen to it. It is a good one. So after I left Tara's house, I was leaving to go visit my dad for Thanksgiving. So this episode is going to be about what happened when I went to my dad's house. So my dad had recently bought a new house and moved since I seen him last. So I said that I could clear his house for him when I went over. So when I first arrived, I dropped off my bag upstairs where I was staying. So my dad has a cat and I'm allergic to cats. So upstairs he kind of has this apartment and I would be staying in the apartment where the cat wasn't going to be. So like the door was closed and they had cleaned upstairs for me, and he was showing me around the house. So we went upstairs to drop my bag, and I instantly said to my dad, there's a man here, Dad. And my dad's like, what? No, there isn't. My house isn't haunted. I'm like, well, no, it's not haunted, but there's a man up here and he wasn't downstairs. So he's like, all right, just, drop your bag and come on down. So we went downstairs and I told my dad's fiance that there was a man upstairs. And she said, I knew someone was here. She said, every day I place my shoes here when I come home from work. I always place them in the same spot. And I know your dad doesn't touch my shoes. So in the morning, they're never where I left them. They're on the other side. She says, I don't move my shoes. Your dad doesn't move my shoes, but my shoes are never where I left them. And I knew that there's been a spirit moving them around the house. And I said, yeah, I felt somebody upstairs. So when I do the house clearing, I'll figure out who he is and see if we can get any information. So after I settle in and I unpack all my things, my dad and I go to do the house clearings. So usually when I do a house clearing, the owner of the house follows me around and I'll say different things about the walls or different information that I pick up in different rooms or about which walls are facing which neighbors, if you like them, if you don't, different things like that. So we started on the main floor and nothing exciting really happened. We went around every room and I was saging and raking the walls and I had my feather to clear. We were opening the windows and business as usual. And then we went upstairs to the area that I was staying in, the upstairs apartment, where I had told my dad earlier that I felt the spirit. So we started at the front door and there was nothing. And then we turned into the living room area where my dad had set up like a poker and cards area. And I said, okay, the man's in here. And my dad said, okay. And I said, he's a dad of someone who would be here often. I was like, does someone come here like once a week, like every Tuesday or something? There's the same person comes here. And my dad's like, well, yeah, I host poker nights here every Thursday night. And the same group of guys always come every Thursday. So I said, okay, well, it's one of their dads. And I said, the dad is waiting here for his son because he knows that he comes here often. And his son has a short name. So his name has like 3 or 4 letters in it. And he also wants him to know that he has his son with him. So does one of your friends have a son that's also passed away? I'm a little bit confused, but the dad is here waiting. And my dad kind of thought for a minute and he said, a short name. Which one of my friends has a short name? And then he remembered that he did have a friend who lost a son. He said when I was born, a few weeks before, his friend also had a son, and he ended up passing away shortly after he was born. And Dad said he remembers because when I was born, he felt weird having this healthy baby in his arms when his friend had just lost a baby. So I said, okay, well, that's probably who this man is, and he's here waiting for his son because he knows this is where his son comes every week. So my dad said, okay, well, what do I do? Do I tell him the message? And I was like, well, I don't know, Dad. You can't just go and tell your friend about how your daughter was clearing your house and tell him that there's this message. Like, what if he doesn't believe in mediumship? What if he thinks you're crazy? And my dad's like, well, I don't think he's crazy. He has to hear this message from his dad. If his dad told you, then he wants the message to get to him. And it was really cute. My dad was like very determined to deliver this message. So I thought, well, you can try telling him, but maybe just lay it easy on him because you don't want to scare him. And he said, yeah, I'm going to drive to his house and I'm going to tell him. I'm going to pull up to the side of his house where no one else can see and I'll just tell him quietly. And I laughed a little bit and I said, okay, Dad, just do it however you want, but just don't expect him to believe you. And I don't want that to hurt your feelings because, not everyone believes in this stuff. And my dad's like, well, he should believe in this because why would you make that up? Why would his dad be here waiting for him if he didn't want him to know this message? Well, he has to know it and I'm going to tell him whether he believes it or not. So I said, okay, Dad, it's your friend. You can do whatever you want. So we continued to clear the house, and upstairs and in his basement, I stopped at a few furniture pieces and I kind of would give him this weird look. And there was a few in particular I would say, this isn't yours, is it? And for every piece of furniture that I stopped at, it was either a piece of furniture that came with the home, a piece of furniture my dad got from a garage sale, or something that he just found and put up in his home. And I kept stopping at these objects and looking at him, and eventually he was just like, yeah, that's not mine. And I would laugh and clear the item. And I just explained to him that when things aren't yours, or when they were in someone else's home, or when you get them from a garage sale, they're carrying other people's energies. So when you bring them into your home, you're just adding more energies into your home that you can tell are not yours. So that's how I could tell that all these items were from a garage sale or were just left from the previous owners. So I'm not going to lie, when I first put my bag down upstairs, I was a little creeped out because there definitely felt like there was a presence in that upstairs apartment. But after the clearing, I went upstairs to go change, and I was completely comfortable with the floor. I felt that the spirit had left because he had delivered his message, and it just felt like a brand new, fresh home with fresh, clear energy. So I came running down the stairs, and I said, okay, he's gone upstairs. I can sleep up there. Everything will be fine. I feel good. So later on that evening, my cousins came over and some of my aunts and uncles, and we were all talking about how I did a clearing for Dad's house and how there was a man upstairs for one of his friends with a short name. And my cousin was telling me how she would love to connect with our grandma who had passed away. And she said, if grandma ever has anything to tell me, like, make sure you tell me because I would love to connect with grandma. Like, why hasn't she come through with a message for me? And I kind of said, okay, cuz I'll try, but it's harder for me to do people that I also know, like my own grandparents. But if you maybe ask her a question in your mind, it'll give her something to tell me, so then she'll have something to say. And my cousin's like, what do you mean? And I said, well, like, think of a question in your mind that you'd want to ask grandma, and then if she wants to answer it, she'll tell me the answer, and then I'll have something to tell you from grandma. And she said, okay, but do I tell you what my question is? And I was like, no. Keep the question in your head, but just think of something that you would want grandma to answer. And if she has something to say, she'll answer the question. And she said, okay. So it was a few hours later, and my cousin asked me if I could Reiki her knees. So she said that her knees really were bothering her, and she just thought maybe Reiki could help. So I said, absolutely, let's go inside, away from everybody else, and I'll Reiki your knees. So we went inside, and we're sitting at the dining room table. She is sitting on one chair, and I am sitting on another in front of her with my hands on her knees. And I am trying to Reiki her, but I'm getting very distracted with grandma. And she's just telling me that my cousin wants to know if she should have kids or not. And I was thinking, is that the question that she asked grandma? And grandma kept kind of being like, she wants to know whether or not she should have kids. She wants to know my opinion. And I thought, I don't think so. Like, I think I would know if she wanted to ask grandma that. We hadn't talked about her having kids. We haven't really had any conversations about it. I didn't really feel comfortable bringing it up out of nowhere. But grandma was really persistent that that was her question. So I had my two hands on her knees and my head was down. And then I looked up at my cousin and I said, did you want to ask grandma if you should have kids or not? And instantly she got tears in her eyes and she starts shaking her head and she said, yes, that was my question. She said, I wish she was here so that I could talk to her. So grandma began to answer the question in the most grandma way she could. So she said that she couldn't say yes or no. She couldn't tell her to have kids or not have kids because she can see her life both ways. She said you can never tell someone the answer, but there is no right or wrong way, no better or worse. There's just different. She said your life will be different. And she also told my cousin that she supports any option that she chooses to do, but she just wants her to do what is best for her. So she kind of went on and elaborated a bit more. But at the end, I kind of said to my cousin, I'm sorry, grandma didn't really answer the question, but I don't really think she could answer the question. And my cousin said, yeah, I know she would say that if she was here, but I just really wanted to know like her thoughts because grandma had 5 kids and she knew what life was like with children. So it was super interesting and a really moving experience that grandma came through to help her out and answer the question that she asked. So the next day I had to leave my dad's house and my dad was going to go tell his friend right then and there about the message that happened the day before. So I said, okay, text me with what happens. I want to know how this guy reacts. And he said, all right, I'll text you. And he was on a mission. When I pulled out of the driveway to go and leave, my dad also was getting into his car to pull out and leave, to drive to his friend's house, to pull up to the side door to tell him about what happened the day before. So he said once he told him, he would text me what happened. So I will read you the text messages that my father sent to me after he told his friend. these text messages should explain how hilarious and also blunt my father is. So I said, "Did you end up telling your friend?" My dad said, "Yes, I told him." I texted, "Well, what did he say?" My dad said, "Nothing yet." I said, "Well, did you send it in a text?" He said, "He don't believe that stuff, but said thanks. No, I talked to him." I was like, "Oh, well, at least you told him." He said, "I explained how it all went down." And that was it. So I guess this guy did get the message from his father, and whether he believed it or not is his own choice, but his dad wanted him to know that he had his son with him. So the last thing that happened when I was at my dad's house was a message for my dad's fiance. So her mother is passed away, and I asked my dad if she would be interested in knowing a message from her mom. And my dad kind of shrugged and said, "Yeah, I think so. She might want to know." So we were sitting watching TV one night, and I said, "Hey, would you want to know if you had a message from your mom?" And she says, "Oh, is my mom mad at me? If she is, I don't want to hear it." And I said, No. I was like, "The message is actually for one of your sisters." So her mom was known for having a gift to rid people of the evil eye. So my dad's fiance has told us many stories about how people would show up on their doorstep at all hours of the day and night, wanting her mom to help these people who had the evil eye. So I said, "Your mom is saying that one of your sisters has the same gift that she has, and she doesn't want the sister to have the same experience that she did with it, and she doesn't have to help everybody. But one of your brother's youngest son is in need of this gift, and she wants the sister to do it for the son. She said, I only want you to do it for family, and you'll know how to do it when you do it, but you need to tell your sister, you know which one it is, that she has to do it for your brother's youngest son." And instantly my dad's fiance knew who I was talking about, and she knew who it was for. And she said, "Okay, I'll try to tell her, but I don't know if my sister's going to want to do it because I think it's something she's been suppressing for a long time." So I said, "Okay, your mom just says she only has to do it once, and it's for your brother's kid, so maybe she'll make an exception and try it at least." And she said, "All right, I'll let her know." So that was what happened when I went and visited my dad. It was a 24-hour visit that had a lot packed into it. Thank you again for listening to the Medium in the Middle podcast. My name is Stephanie. Again, if you like the podcast, if you like this episode, please leave me a rating and a review. I would really, really appreciate it. And if you do want to stay connected with me, follow me on Instagram at Medium in the Middle. Okay, everybody, I'll see you next Tuesday for a brand new episode. Have a wonderful week. Goodbye.